Welcome to Ramesh Kakan's Vision Nilgiri's inspiring moral story series. In the dim twilight of an otherwise ordinary Thursday evening, a knock echoed through the quiet, cluttered hallway of a small blue house on Willow Lane, knitting together the frayed edges of a story that had begun 2 decades earlier. Seattle's soggy spring had given way to an interlude of golden light that streamed through the dusty windows, illuminating the face of an elderly man as he cautiously opened the door. His eyes, lined with years of sorrow and longing, widened with a mixture of disbelief and hope. On the doorstep stood a much younger man, his stance hesitant yet hopeful, a worn-out backpack slung over his shoulder. This was no ordinary visit, it was a son returning home, trying to bridge the silent years stretched out between him and his father. Richard had not always been distant from his son, Tom. They shared countless memories of fishing by the creek, working on model airplanes, and laughing over Sunday morning pancakes. But as Tom stepped into adolescence, clashes became frequent. Richard's expectations seemed to Tom like towering, insurmountable walls, and Tom's rebellious spirit appeared to Richard as ingratitude and defiance. The last argument had been about Tom's career choice, a photographer instead of an engineer, a disagreement that culminated in harsh words and a slammed door. For years afterward, the silence grew dense, like the heavy fog that settles on Seattle in the dead of winter. As Richard flipped through the old, faded photographs one rainy afternoon, every image whispered of lost opportunities. It was these whispers that finally moved him to action. On a brisk spring morning, with resolve stiffening his spine, he penned a letter to Tom, not demanding reconciliation but offering understanding and a chance to start anew. Weeks turned into months with no response. Hope dwindled with each passing day, but the door, both literal and metaphorical, remained open. The years had taught Richard the value of patience and the depth of his love for his son, no matter the estrangement that had hardened between them. Tom had traversed more than just miles to find himself on that familiar doorstep. He had walked through years of pride and hurt, through various countries, capturing landscapes and human emotions through his lens, yet none as complex as his feelings towards his father. The letter from Richard had reached him in a small cafe in Paris. As he read it, the clatter of coffee cups and the murmur of conversations faded into a backdrop for his turbulent thoughts. It was then he realized that forgiveness was not just a gift to his father, but a salve for his own scars. Standing at the doorstep, Tom felt the weight of his backpack and of his past decisions acutely. Taking a deep breath, he raised his hand to knock, half afraid that this door, like so many in his heart, had been closed for too long. But when the door opened and he saw his father, older, frailer, but with eyes shining with unshed tears, he knew the door was still open. Conversation did not flow easily at first. There were awkward pauses, a stilted offering of coffee, and the shuffling of feet. But as the evening wore on, words began to thaw the lingering ice. Stories were shared, apologies were offered without reservation, and laughter, timid at first, began to warm the room. By the time the night wrapped its dark arms around the little house on Willow Lane, healing had begun. The story of Richard and Tom is more than just a narrative of estrangement and reconciliation. It is a testament to the enduring strength of familial bonds. As the door on Willow Lane closed that night, it was not an ending, but a quiet acknowledgement of a new beginning, a beginning filled with the promise of shared tomorrows and a rekindled connection, proving that sometimes the door never really closes.